the threshold.
It is running directly through the threshold. It appears to be a crystallization, again, a calcite possibly, where you just have a big vein of calcite running through the piece of limestone, but we haven't seen any of that at any of the other structures. It really looks melted. You can see here the way it's running down like this. I mean, just look at it. It looks like a huge plasma discharge, or like a Lichtenberg figure that melted down through there. And, well, we saw the other one has a big giant obelisk attached to it. Because these things are the highest point on the landscape right here on the coast.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to the land of Chem. I'm your host and the author. My name is Jeffrey Drum. Thank you all so much for joining me again.
All right, everyone, welcome back. Now, in today's Sunday site visit, the epic conclusion of our on-site expedition to investigate the bizarre structures of ancient Malta with an exploration of the Carrowkeel and Newgrange temple complex, including an up-close examination of the plasma-vitrified threshold stone and the infamous Maltese cart ruts. Mystery solved. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you all so much for the support. I think that's it for today's intro, so without further ado, let's get right to it. All right, everyone, here we go with tonight's episode. Now, to begin, as we were exploring the complex of Carrowkeel, we reached the threshold of the Newgrange temple, and I noticed something that immediately caught my attention. This stone, which appears to have experienced a high voltage current flow resulting from dielectric breakdown of the material, leaving this melted, crystallized mineral deposit. Of course, this may simply be a naturally occurring mineral vein or inclusion, as you will hear me discuss in the footage, that was selected for simple aesthetic purposes. However, I knew I had seen this stone mentioned before. In this article from Dr. Robert Schock, which I have presented before in many episodes regarding the Giza Plateau Iron Vein Network, he too took note of this stone at the Newgrange temple and mentioned it may have been formed as a result of a large-scale plasma discharge that hit the earth in our ancient past, stating here, another example which I have studied firsthand, which preserves the natural vitrified rock, can be seen at the temple of Newgrange on Malta. This example in the entryway megalith, a threshold stone, conveys the importance of the sun to the temple and perhaps to the micronova it unleashed. So now you will get a chance to see this bizarre artifact up close and an on-site discussion of how it may have been formed. And now, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I hope you enjoy Sunday Site Visit 110 from the Carrowkeel and Newgrange temple complex. And I'll be back after this first section of the footage, and we'll dive into an examination of the infamous Maltese cart ruts.
All right, we're back today to explore two of Malta's most exceptional temple complexes, and we're here in the museum starting off the tour. And this is a good little diorama demonstration of the proposed solar alignments that are encoded into the temple. And we ran this once, and well, again, I'll kind of leave it up to you to make a decision as to whether or not that you think that these alignments are intentional. So the first one here is Carrowkeel, which is the first one that we'll see, which also has some super interesting features within the site that I'll point out when we get in there, because you really got to see them up close in person. So they have this little adjacent complex structure here, and then here's the main temple. And the more that we discuss these similarities between the structures here in Malta and the design of comparable structures in Turkey, for example, Göbekli Tepe, they become more apparent. There's a striking similarity between the design of these structures in terms of these elongated, oval, semicircular shaped chambers. Okay, so here you can see the path of light that's indicated, and there's actually a little hole in the temple here, a little aperture. And we have here summer solstice light, which is, again, according to this thing, supposed to shine through that hole, illuminating this little back cell of the chamber here. I'm not sure I'm on board with that one. It's interesting that the hole is there, but what was the significance of this chamber? Summer solstice. I mean, any time during the summer, you're going to be getting light into that hole. And it doesn't appear to be illuminating anything of significance inside of this chamber other than just that wall. Like, it's just a rock. So again, anytime during the summer, you're still going to be getting light beams into the chamber. So I don't know so much about this one. So this is Hagarakim. The next one here is the second temple at this complex. Just looking at it, it has a very similar arrangement to the Gigantia temple that we saw yesterday. This one is Manajdara. Okay, so here we have summer solstice, light beam coming from here. And you can see the convergence of the light. Okay, so now we have the sun from the summer solstice following the light beam into the temple, illuminating this little niche over here. Okay, so this one is a little bit more convincing because there's actually something of significance inside of the temple where the light does seem to be illuminating that feature specifically. All right, so now we're going to move here to spring and autumn equinox. Can you hold that, babe? Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so light from the sun goes in through here and passes through the central passageway, illuminating the back altar. Okay, this one's pretty convincing as well. And I would imagine, so this is just obviously a replica, you probably had some sort of feature like this over here, which is now destroyed. So we're going to do winter solstice, and we'll follow our light beam into the structure here, illuminating something here. So this is a little bit more convincing, but you know, generally speaking, all throughout the year you're going to get light going in there illuminating the entire structure. So this one isn't like, you know, again, Abu Simbel, for example, where the passage of light goes directly into the chamber at the back, very, very precisely and intentionally, specifically illuminating only one part of the chamber and leaving the section with Ptah darkened, because Ptah is always presented in the dark. Or Newgrange, for example, where it's a very long passage, and only during one particular time of year the light beam shoots all the way down the passage. This one is a bit more of an open configuration, and it's not as, I guess, specifically obvious, these solar alignments. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. We're going to explore the museum a bit here. Oh, I might as well take you along. And you can already see kind of these, we'll be looking at this up close in person here in just a moment, because I do think that what would appear to some to be decorational features are actually part of the function of the structure. Again, these Venus statues that have been found all around, there is a standing stone or menhir at the structure, a giant obelisk, which of course has my attention. I'm looking forward to seeing this thing. Okay, so this is one of these passageways. And it encourages, here, climb through. Through the portal.
Starting.
And you can see here, like we've been pointing out at these temples, it has these little holes here and here, which would have been used for some sort of closure, whether it be, you know, a piece of fabric or skin, or a physical door made of wood or something of that nature. Some more of these spiral decorative features. So this here is showing, okay, the difference between trying to move a stone by simply dragging it compared to a stone on rollers, which this, it's broken. But certainly this is indicating the stone is much easier to roll if you have it on top of these. Here, yeah.
Oh, it's much easier.
Well, again, this thing is broken, but it does glide a lot easier on top of the stone rollers. Now, all of this structure was built from local Globerina limestone. All right, museum. All right, so I might as well go ahead and point this out here, because we'll be going to this in just a moment. The huge quarry over here, which is directly adjacent to some very interesting features that connect directly into the quarry. So here is the temple, the Manajdara temple, and Hagarakim, which we'll be seeing today. We're here in the visitor center. You see that the limestone quarry, in the location of these two, the limestone quarry is right here, still in use today. And we're going to visit some features. Hopefully you can see where this is going by now, that connect directly into this quarry. And that'll be the last site on the visit for today. So that's a cool little diagram that shows the availability and proximity of the limestone quarries, literally moving them a couple hundred meters, maybe a kilometer or two, directly to the building sites. All right. I'm super excited to see this one. Malta has been an absolutely spectacular adventure thus far. Generally speaking, I am fascinated by the mystery of the ancient civilization that built this thing. All of these temple structures are dated to approximately 4000 to 3000 BC, somewhere in that time range, with older sections of the structures dating back much earlier than that. So what was the original construction date of these things? Still subject for some interpretation. And I don't know if we can see it here in the distance, but it's out there. Let's go. All right, here we go. Hagarkim. Yeah, this thing is super impressive. And I can already see the big obelisk, menhir standing stone over here. All right, so we'll walk around the outside first. Again, you can see some perspective of the people standing there and the size of the complex. And so these stones over here looks like they have been exposed to more erosion. All of this was originally probably looking like this, but then this side here is severely eroded and deteriorated. Again, I can't help but notice the similarity between the stones here and the stones at Avebury. Have a very similar appearance to them.
More wind coming in from the sea, Jeff.
Yeah, yeah. Again, the beautiful Mediterranean Ocean. So this one's right on the coast. Really spectacular. And the second temple is right down this way. We'll head down that way in a moment. And we'll get a chance to go into some areas of the temple complex. Again, they're very, I will say, I have to give them accolades in terms of the archaeological preservation of these sites. They really, really care about making sure that these monuments are protected. Now, from my perspective, it's a little frustrating. As you know, we like to explore up close and be able to examine all of the small details of the structure. So, you know, some of these chambers are otherwise inaccessible. Because you have to follow the footpath. And we already did the little demonstration for the solar alignments here in the temple in the introduction to the video, showing that it illuminates through that little hole. Again, here is this huge standing stone obelisk type feature. And I can already see some of these pock marks, which immediately caught my attention when some of my previous tour guests were sending me photos of this. I see Alexa over there doing her thing. There's this huge standing stone. We're definitely, this is that other adjacent temple complex. We'll go check that out here in a second if they let you. I don't know, maybe off limits, because I don't think you're supposed to go see some of those depressions here that we saw yesterday. I really like the idea that some of those deep depressions are anchor points for some of the lifting equipment that was utilized to hoist these stones into place. We also see similar features on the Giza plateau. And I'm looking for the hole. Yeah, there's the hole right there. So hopefully you can see that. Right here, there's the aperture through which the sunlight would enter the internal chamber. I think it was summer solstice. That the light beam goes through here and illuminates the chamber on the inner side. And this is explaining this configuration here, which is unique to this structure, which is an external niche
So normally these type of features are on the inside of the structure, but this temple has this, well, again, niche is one word to describe it, offering area. They call this the oracle hole. So this oracle hole was used, you know, possibly for sound or light, to be introduced into the internal part of the temple from the outside. But looking at this configuration of stones, again, what did this look like originally? It's hard to say. I almost get the impression that this part was closed off here, because you see all this stone rubble here. So there may have actually been a stone here. Which would make the function of this hole for a solar alignment kind of superfluous and unnecessary. Again, I'm a little little bit suspicious about the function of the solar alignments at this particular structure. And then look at the size of this piece here. Yeah, okay, it's talking about how big the thing is, yeah. 20 tons. This is one big single piece here. And I mean, that's a huge piece of stone. And then it's saying over here that the obelisk was originally more than 5 meters tall. I think it's at 17 feet. This big boy over here, which towers above the temple, which is, again, if you're looking around, this temple is on the highest point of this little seaside area. This is another adjacent temple complex here. Here, Lex, come stand over here. I just want to give the people, that's the oracle hole, the light hole or whatever.
Oh, that we saw in the
Yeah, that little hole, yeah.
That's for summer solstice? Summer equinox?
Summer solstice. Just stand right here for 1 sec. My hot wife, Alexa. Ancient Odysseys. Alright, so just so you can see how big this thing is. It's huge. Okay.
That's the biggest stone, I think.
Thank you. Good work, babe.
Thanks. I'm working hard here. What's your initial impression?
So again, I'm skeptical of the solar alignment here. We'll see when we go inside how we feel about the internal features, those little pockmark hole decorations. I don't think it's decorative. So these things are all over the sites. Again, it's the same as the smaller feature where this little passageway kind of loops around to the other side. You know, possibly rope anchor points to where if they were using some scaffolding or an A-frame, you could have a rope in through here where the rope was up on an A-frame or pulley type system and pulling the rope to raise the stones into place. That was just sort of intuitive, but I actually really like that because you can see the groove moves away in this direction. So this is an anchor point for possibly a rope, you know, a series of ropes, and you have your team of men back here that were using this as an anchor point. So then you have the scaffolding or pulley apparatus here to raise a piece of stone. So if the piece of stone is laying flat here, you could use that pulley apparatus
to raise it up vertically through this feature here. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because the exit.
Correct.
Here.
Yeah.
For some leverage.
All right. Again, I just try to think out loud when I'm at these sites and, you know, give you my honest feedback in terms of what some of these anomalous features are for. All right, here we go.
Quite a bit of restoration work.
Again, these bilateral features here. Looks like. And here you can see the first example of these little pockmark features. And you can see the dual holes here and here. Would have been for some sort of closure over this door. Looks like it, possibly. All right, so so let's talk about these little pockmarks. When I got photos of this site from Richard and Thomas during their last visit here, I immediately got the impression, and I confirmed this with a quick Google search where I found the exact same thing, but a modern example. Okay, so here is the hole, where that hole comes in, and it would illuminate this stone here. Now, again, what was this chamber and section of the temple for originally? That hole does have like a diagonal angle to it, so it may actually be configured to bring the light in there on the summer solstice. But light would be coming in that hole all throughout the summer. So back to the pockmarks. As soon as I saw that, the first thing that popped into my head was acoustic paneling. And they have very similar acoustic paneling today. You can see an example of this entire stone here is covered with those little tiny holes. And they have, again, very similar acoustic paneling today, but it's not for acoustic amplification, it's for acoustic dampening. To reduce the echo and to insulate the sound. So one of the main topics that we've been discussing on this is sort of archaeoacoustics, where some structures may have been intended for the amplification and resonance of certain frequencies, where other structures could be intended for the exact opposite, is mitigating and dampening the amount of echo, resonance, and amplification of sound. both of which, these two phenomenon, have a very different effect on the human mind, psyche. So I do think that these structures are, and to use the conventional nomenclature, unfortunately I don't think we can really explore too much more. Here's some interesting, this kind of reminds me of Egypt, where we find these two hole features in various temple structures. The temple of Ptah at Abu Sir, specifically because they have this exact same configuration of these dual holes. And you can see these table or kind of altar type features very much at like workbench height. So, you know, people were definitely going into this temple. Yeah, I don't know if those holes are, I don't think they're just decorative. I think there was a function. Because you can see this whole chamber in here, the inner stones all have this pockmark feature in here. Even this one here has it. And I Googled it, and we have acoustic paneling today that looks just like this. Getting this huge obelisk here. Definitely the tallest part of the structure. By far the tallest point of anything in the surrounding area. Because this is on like a hill on the side of a cliff. And it's cracked. It's not even as high as it was originally. This piece is broken off, so it would have been much taller than that originally. So I'm going to go back around here and take a look at this oracle hole. And I wish we could, I mean, I could very easily step over this rope, but there's a lot of people around. Just try to respect the sights. And I was discussing with, you know, Richard and his wife and Alexa how there is, you know, again, there's a profound effort at archaeological preservation here, which, you know, they do absolutely zero of in Egypt. And here is a room where there's these, they've been calling these mortars. So it's stones that have these little basins or depressions or cups or and these mortar type features here. There was a room that had several of those. Hey, the panorama. Jeffrey, where is the espresso? Shout out, Thomas, if you're watching this. Probably still sleeping. All right, so again, I really do like the interpretation of this feature here being part of the construction process for an anchor point for a rope and pulley system. And you can see the size of the dude standing here compared to the size of the entrance area. Go back around here and look at this oracle hole again before we proceed to the next one. All right, yeah, that oracle hole. But, I mean, again, if you look at the configuration of this part here, there's stones that fill in this thing. This part would have been covered up. And I get the impression that this part would have been covered up too. So I'm not 100% on board with the idea that this hole was open, because the temple facade would have covered this up. This would have been open, but I'm not 100% on board with that. The other temple, the next one that we'll see, Masuda, it's a little bit more intuitively obvious that there are solar alignments, because there's features inside of the temple itself that are specifically designed to receive that light during intentional times of the year. And you can see this is showing it used to have a corbelled roof here. So these tiers would have converged to a corbelled roof over this area, which again is the area with the oracle hole, the solar alignment hole. But to just have it shining on this, you know, I don't know. And again, more bilateral holes. You can see again this one loops down and comes out this way. And this one does the same, where it goes in and comes out here. The matching one over here. This part may have eroded away. This all looks very deteriorated. All right, so now we're gonna take a little walk. You know, it's like 500 meters from here to the next temple. And be right back.
All right, everyone, I hope you're enjoying the video. And if you are interested in the ancient technology of a lost civilization utilizing physics and chemistry and the function of the Egyptian pyramids and other ancient structures from across the world, please remember to subscribe to the Land of Chem here on YouTube so you don't miss out on the new episodes that premiere twice per week. If you want to help support the channel, check out thelandofchem.com. You can pick up a copy of the book or grab some merch. Link in the video description below. And if you want to get access to exclusive research videos, check out the Land of Chem members only channel, now up to 22 absolutely massive research episodes that also feature some unreleased expedition footage. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you all so much for the support. Now, back to the video.
All right, so we just walked. Here was the Hagarakim site, and you walk down here. This absolutely terrible view. All right. Manajdara, something like that. All right, so this one seems like you can maybe walk up and around this one a little bit more. This is the most complex temple that we've seen thus far, as you saw in the diorama at the beginning, showing the alignments. So I don't think they let you walk around this one. Yeah, they have, you know, these ropes indicating the accessible areas, and there's no pathway around it.
Where do you want to go first?
I will follow you.
Okay. Go this way.
Yalabina. Yeah, so this is just explaining the restoration process. Obviously, some of these are restoration and not original to the structure.
This limestone is much more red.
Yep. Okay. And being this close to the sea, I can understand why there's such an effort to preserve these things. They're getting constantly exposed to sun, sand, salt, wind, water. Alright, so I have these little enclosures here. And they were saying that no human burial remains have been found at either of these sites. So they know that they have, and this would originally been a completely rectangular portal. And this top part is broken off here. But they know that these sites are not related to burials. They found other cremated remains, but they were more sacrificial, is what they say. You know, animal bones and things of this nature, but no actual human burial have been found in any of these temples. Okay. Alexa was just saying that it's possible that there could have been a statue of some sort in these two niches here. And it's just saying comparatively, this side of the temple is much more simple design than this side of the temple. No solar alignments entered this side. They only came into this side over here. And again, this is a porthole entrance here that leads into a small chamber over there. See this little alcove niche area here. Yep, maybe that's been broken up.
That looks like a graffiti, like it's multi-level.
Yeah.
Who knows how old that is?
Yeah. Lex was just pointing out the little graffiti here, which looks like it's showing the original roof on the structure. So that may be a very old graffiti. I will say the sound of the birds in here is quite nice. Reminds me of Dendara and some of the temples in Upper Egypt that are filled with birds. All right, so here I can already see there's another one of these rope anchor points over here. Another one of these features.
This is the alignment chamber.
Yeah. So we were just in this side over here, which again doesn't have any solar alignments. And then we're going to enter this other side that does have summer solstice, equinox, and winter solstice alignments. So here's another one of these rope anchor features here.
Oh, right on the outside.
Yeah, same kind of similar position.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Where again the pulling part would have happened from here. The rope went under here and up over a scaffolding or pulley type system that was used to lift the stones up into place vertically. I like that hypothesis. Here's another one, very eroded near the door. Ooh, and this one has a ton of these pockmarked features. A little mini obelisk there.
All right, this is an interesting feature that I saw before. I wonder what that mineral is. And you know what that reminds me of course, is the iron veins on the Giza plateau. It is definitely some mineralization. Because this is limestone. It almost looks like calcite crystal. It's very dark color. It certainly has a plasma discharge type shape to it. That is a very unusual feature. No, go ahead. No problem.
Nice that you see that.
It's right at the threshold.
It is running directly through the threshold. It appears to be a crystallization, again, a calcite possibly, where you just have a big vein of calcite running through the piece of limestone, but we haven't seen any of that at any of the other structures. It really looks melted. You can see here the way it's running down like this. I mean, just look at it. It looks like a huge plasma discharge, or like a Lichtenberg figure that melted down through there. And well, we saw the other one has a big giant obelisk attached to it. Again, these things are the highest point on the landscape, right here on the coast. So I would be very interested to see if that, well, again, it's just this one block.
Did
So
you have a physiological change? Did you feel anything walking through?
do you have your magnetometer?
Yeah.
So we'll see if there's any magnetic field. We should have been doing that this whole time. We always get, again, it's
We get so excited.
during the initial site visits. That's why we always go back to these things multiple times, because the first time is just for the experience. You know, it's never to do research. It's to experience the site and let it speak to you and just gather initial impressions. And then the next time you come to the site, you can do a more detailed, in-depth research analysis of small things that, you know, were of interest. And Lex is just seeing if there's...
Okay. Oh. It's 44 outside of the temple.
Okay. Yeah, so I didn't expect there to be any magnetic field because there's no metal in there. There's no iron content, and there's nothing that can be magnetized. It very well may be, okay, so some rationalization. It may just be a natural mineral deposit running through the piece of stone. They found it, they thought it looked cool, so they harvested this particular block and used it as the threshold piece. That's certainly possible. You would have to do an analysis to see if any of the blocks under here, okay, so if this happened during, let's say, hypothetically, the function of the structure, you know, you would expect to see that vein running in this direction and running in this direction underneath these stones, or evident somewhere else in the temple. So before we make any conclusions on that, it may just be a natural, you know, geological feature for aesthetic purposes, a cool little feature marking the entrance to the temple.
and it would be tough to, you'd have to dig all that up to see, because it's just this piece of stone. It doesn't continue under like we see in the construction in Egypt, where transverse stones will continue under and back into the structure. It appears to just be this block here. All right, but in the temple here, we have a lot more of these. Look at all these pockmarked features. Again, as soon as I see this, I think acoustic paneling. This is showing the two different types of limestone, the coralline limestone and the globergina. I think I said globerina earlier, but globergina. Globergina. Jeffrey, what is the globergina limestone? I'm Italian now, even though Malta is not technically Italian. The globergina. Hey. All right, definitely more interesting features in here. We have this little chamber over here. See a little opening niche here. Interesting little feature over here. And I wish we could walk around the outside. I think that's connected into, we'll go check out the diagram. This is showing that it was originally a roofed over the structure. I want to go check out the diagram and see what it says about these things. If you guys are interested, we can dive a little bit deeper into the research aspect. Okay, so again, it's saying the sun comes through the center thing, shines in this portal, shines over here, and then equinox goes right through the center, illuminating this area here to the back part of the chamber, which unfortunately you can't access. I see what look like to be some circular depressions here. You got this little feature here. Again, these bilateral holes here and here, which are most likely door closures. I mean, some severe weathering. This is obviously reconstruction in here, so there's definitely been some archaeological preservation and reconstruction work up in here. Let's get up close so you can see. So again, to reiterate, when we use this type of acoustic paneling today, it's not for sound amplification, it's for sound dampening, negation, and basically insulation, so that it doesn't echo or reverberate. So again, that may be the intended function, is to negate and dampen sound within the chamber. So, little circular feature here. Unfortunately, we can't go back into that. Yep, again, that obelisk menhir stone is, again, it's in the same. So we are on the west side, so that is like what, northwest corner? Yeah. Because we're on the west side of the island now, so this would be northwest. You see that highly eroded looking menhir obelisk stone back there. That's a cool shot. Yeah. West. Okay. All right.
This reminds me of Egypt.
Yeah, it's very Egyptian, the way the paving stones are laid.
They They do this too under the torii gates.
And even the threshold stone in like Dendara or any of the other Egyptian temples, they have a threshold piece that's granite and much older than the rest of the structure. This little, I don't know, man, that has my attention there. All right, so we have one more spot for today's expedition, and I won't spoil it with any further explanation. We'll just be there now. All right, now, the next site we visited is known as Clapham Junction, which is located right here. The most famous of the Maltese quote-unquote Cartwright sites due to their high concentration at this location. It also features literal junctions where the ruts branch off into different directions spanning across the island. But before I roll the footage, let's dive into a quick investigation on Google Earth. Let's go. All right, here we go. To the site of Clapham Junction, which you can see here. And let me get us oriented so you can take a look at the site from above. And get us centered and zoom in a bit here. And you can see the abundance of these rut features carved directly into the bedrock all across this area. And there are junctions in these cart ruts. For example, you can see these ruts here, and then a junction here where it branches off in this direction. Moving over to this area here. The junction here also branches off to the right. You can see this one moving off in this direction here. We'll go back a little bit. We're going to pick up where we left off with this one here. Moving back over here. You can see these ruts moving in this direction. Another series here. And then a large convergence and junction of these cart ruts here. So this site is literally a junction site for these rut systems. Now, let's just pull back a bit more here, and the source of the mystery will become abundantly clear. So, do you know what this is? Let me throw some angle on this so you can see it from a different perspective. All right, there we go. Is it clear yet? This is a giant limestone quarry. This limestone quarry has been identified as the source of the limestone that was utilized in the construction of both the Hagar-Kim and Amnidra temple complex, and it is still in use today. And all of the cart ruts here at the Clapham Junction site are pointing directly into the quarry. Ladies and gentlemen, mystery solved. The ruts are for transporting stone. Blatantly obvious when you see it at the site. However, these ruts were absolutely not for quote-unquote carts, as the convergence of many of these ruts is completely incompatible with a fixed axle or fixed wheelbase quote-unquote cart. They are tracks for bearing stones. So now, ladies and gentlemen, let's head out to the site so you can see it for yourself. All right. So what you can see in this direction is a huge limestone quarry.
And I've already put in a map so you can see the location of this quarry. I mean, there's a huge quarry face that you can see there. Some of the modern operation, a huge quarry waste pile here, huge limestone quarry. And I'm going to turn around, and this is it. A site called Clapham Junction, which is the primary site for these infamous cart ruts of ancient Malta, which you already saw a little preview of these features in previous Sunday site visit. So you can see these cart ruts going up in this direction, and we're just going to walk around here for a few minutes and take a look at these. You saw a small preview of these the other day when we were in Gozo visiting the Gigantia complex. And we've also seen these structures at ancient quarries in Japan that were utilized for the transportation of stones. So, looking at the configuration of the site in proximity to the quarry, and they know that this quarry site was where the limestone blocks were harvested that were utilized in the construction of Hagarkim and the Manajdara temple that we just visited. So these cart ruts are utilized for the transportation of stone. All of these cart ruts pointing directly to the quarry site. Now, I do not think that they were used for actual carts that have a fixed wheelbase. There's a lot of evidence here in Malta that they were utilizing these rolling stones. So imagine that you put the rolling stones in these ruts, and then the stone was moved on top of the rolling stones that were placed in the ruts, because a lot of these ruts converge. So if you had a fixed wheelbase cart, it wouldn't be able to run the entire length of the rut. But if you had these rolling ball bearing stones, the stone could slide and be easily turned at different junctions, which is why this site is called Clapham Junction. It was utilized for the movement of stones from the quarry into different areas of the island. So this entire field here, again, field isn't necessarily a good term, but we'll call it field of ruts. This site is just teeming. A lot of this area is overgrown here, but we've seen these cart ruts all over Malta. And I think this is just the primary site that has these cart features. Again, I'm not going to call them cart ruts. I will call them stone transportation ruts, because I don't think that there was a fixed, again, a fixed wheelbase isn't compatible for the features that we see here. A lot of this limestone is super highly eroded. Here you can see one of these converging. So it converges here. One goes here and one goes here. So again, if you had a cart with a fixed wheelbase, it wouldn't be able to move into this converging section. But if you had bearing stones, these ball bearing stones, the stone could roll all the way through here until the next point where you had another set of stones, and it could just keep rolling. And you know, these features are found all over the planet. They aren't just here in Malta. I mean, they're pretty ubiquitous.
This is a big one here. And this is about the size of the stones that we've seen at the sites, these spherical ball-bearing stones that they've found at all of these temple structures and sites here in Malta. Again, everywhere you look, they're just cart ruts everywhere. Cart ruts, cart ruts. Yeah, again, let me stop calling them cart ruts because they're not for carts. More like ball-bearing channels for stone movement. Again, all of it pointing directly toward the quarry. So I would say it's at this point almost inarguable that these ruts are directly connected to the transportation of limestone that was being harvested in the quarry. And this is this shaft tomb. Do you see this, babe? It's called a shaft tomb. Here, will you hold my camera real quick? And there's some more of these. Good. While she walks over here, there's some more of these features. They're all through this area. Again, the site is called Clapham Junction, which I think is an appropriate term for the conjunction of all of these ruts here. I'm going to try to hop down in here. Here, will you hold this? Well, I think it should be all right. I'll have a look down in here. Yep. All right, so it's just a rock cut.
What do you see?
It's just a chamber.
How big?
Maybe 4 by 8. Hold on, let's see if I can get a flashlight on this thing. This might not be the best. Yeah, it's just sort of a, can you see that? Yeah, you can see that. I don't know if that light makes any difference, but.
Is there anything on the walls?
Nah. I'm good, I'm good.
See if it's scary.
All right. So, I mean, these are, I don't think there's any mystery about these things. I mean, it's pretty
obvious.
Pretty obvious.
They're working here still.
Yeah, they're still cutting limestone out of the quarry. All of these things point directly to the limestone quarry. You put 2 and 2 together, you know, there's no real mystery about these things. I haven't done any research into the conventional archaeological interpretation. This is a good example here. You can see these roughly parallel, but then also they sort of converge in areas, which is again why I disagree with the nomenclature of cart ruts. You know, there wasn't a cart moving in through here. They were most likely using those ball-bearing stones. Yeah. And they're about the width to where those spherical ball-bearing stones would fit in there, and then you just roll the stone directly on top of that. You don't need a cart. And you can see that these converge. They get more narrow. And we'll follow this set. This is a good set that goes down in this direction. And then we'll walk down in the other way.
Yeah, this reminds me of Malta too.
Oh, this is a good set here. Again, it just keeps going. You can see the parallel lines. And so those rolling stones would actually allow for clearing, because as the stone rolled through the groove, it would rise up, allowing for you to clear
areas like this. And again, you got a bunch of dudes pulling this thing, you know, according to the conventional explanation for how these things were moved. And these rolling stones are pretty big, you know, they're like a foot and a half in diameter, which is perfectly applicable for the size of these grooves. There's another little cave feature over there. Yeah, and it just keeps going back to the modern road. All right. Yeah, I was thinking about that. You know, some of these bands are kind of in the know. Yeah, the album covers are pretty esoteric information encoded, and you know, the songs about lightning and the white horse and all this kind of stuff. Who is that makes the white horse lightning song? I don't know, we've heard it mentioned. There's a shotgun shell right there. So pretty cool. I've been looking forward to seeing this thing. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I don't think there's any mystery to be solved here, because again, it literally tells you exactly what it's for. So we'll follow this back to the road. I've actually been driving here in Malta in my friend's car, so we got the car for today. Gives us a little bit more freedom to kind of explore different sites. I think now we're gonna go to lunch and get some pizza. Yeah, some pepperoni, some actual pork products. To mangia the pizza. Mangia is eat in Italian. Although, again, the Maltese are not Italians, and they have their own dialect here, which is an interesting fusion of Arabic and Italian. Lots of Arabic words in the Maltese language, so I can understand some of what they say based on my knowledge of Spanish. I speak fluent Spanish and also very broken Arabic, so you know, with those two I can actually understand what these Maltese folks are saying. But pretty cool site. Clapham Junction, cart ruts, bit off of the beaten path, but I did see a taxi driver at the other archaeological complex, and you can just see him running up the hill here. Again, super eroded, you know, natural erosion of the limestone here. So I don't know if there's any effort to preserve these things, because they're literally all over the island that were utilized for the movement of stone to different complexes. And Alex and I were just talking, like, you know, whatever the intended function of these temples was here in Malta, they were certainly doing a lot of it, because there are temples like this and remains of temples all over these islands. So clearly this was a sacred destination or place of inhabitation for this ancient civilization. You ready to eat? Let's do it. All right, so cutting limestone, moving limestone, building temples, doing elaborate ceremonial rituals within these temples, archaeoacoustics. I'll be getting to an upcoming research episode explaining my hypothesis about the function of the hypogeum, which will kind of tie all of these things together. I'm very excited about that. Hope you've enjoyed the footage thus far. So next, the SAR conference and an exclusive meeting with Filippo Biondi, Armando Maeve, and Corrado Malonga. We're going to meet privately. I'll be filming the the expo and the conference. They're doing a presentation, so that'll be coming up next. We got the exclusive invite to come meet with these scientists. And we'll see what they have to say. I'm very excited and interested to get some direct feedback and get some questions answered. And that'll be coming up here maybe next week's Sunday site visit or an upcoming research episode. Time to manja here in Malta.
All right, everyone, that is it for today's video. This was Sunday Site Visit 110, Secrets of Ancient Malta, Part 3. I really hope you enjoyed today's video, and in the next episode in the series, a full breakdown and assessment of the new data from the Synthetic Aperture Radar Coffer Project team that was presented at the recent Malta conference. This is an episode you do not want to miss, so if you haven't already, please remember to subscribe to the Land of Chem here on YouTube. If you're interested in the technology of an ancient civilization, utilizing physics and chemistry, and the function of the Egyptian pyramids and other ancient structures from across the world, please click that little notification bell so you don't miss out on the new episodes that premiere twice per week. Like, comment, share, and stay tuned. If you want to help support the channel and get access to exclusive research content, check out the Land of Chem members only channel and thelandofchem.com if you want to pick up a copy of the book or grab some merch. Today, I'm rocking some Ancient Odysseys merch from my wife Alexa's channel, also linked in the video description below. Also, don't forget, after you finish watching this video, please go subscribe to our 3 other channels, Ancient Odysseys, Let's Go with Lex and G, and the best channel on YouTube, Egyptian Trash Cats. For all you cat lovers out there, ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you all so much for the support. I think that's it for today's episode, so I will see you next time.
Yo, are you still watching this? Please subscribe to the Land of Chem here on YouTube and click that little notification button. New videos coming out every single week. And check out this other episode. Come on, do it. Do it now.